So far, during our tour of Evidence Manager, we have looked only at the main program that is used in the evidence room. There is a second program that comes with Evidence Manager, which is known as the Network Remote Module. This program is for departments that have a local area network and would like to allow their own officers to input and search for data. If the personnel in the evidence room will be doing all of the data entry and data retrieval, the main evidence program will, however, suffice. This portion of the tour will deal with the Network Remote Module, which is a popular program used by thousands of officers in many different departments. Allowing officers to access and utilize this program is totally optional and can be implemented at any time. We'll start the tour of the Network Remote Module by having Officer Mike Judd log on to the system with his badge number and password. Once Officer Judd is logged on, he can create new case files or add items to any existing case file. But for every new case file that he creates, he will be assigned as the investigator for that file. He cannot start a new case file for any other officer. Likewise with items, any new item that he adds to a case file will be assigned to him. We'll start off with Officer Mike Judd creating a new case file. Officer Judd is now logged on and ready to start a new case file. For our example, we'll set up the scenario where Officer Judd has just come off the road on a Sunday afternoon. The evidence room is closed until Monday morning. Officer Judd has a new case file in which some stolen property has been recovered. The case file is number 01000090. So Officer Judd enters a 90 to create this new case file. Because it's a new file, a confirmation message appears. If the case file already existed, Evidence Manager would simply open it. However, this is a new file, so the entry screen appears. We will retain the date, which is correct. We cannot change the investigator. Because Officer Judd is logged on, he is assigned automatically as the investigator. We will use the drop-down list of charges and choose Recovered Stolen Property. Now we're ready to finish the process of creating our new case file. We use the OK button to save and open our new file. Now that the new case file has been created, we're ready to add our items of recovered stolen property. We have two items, a cell phone and a car stereo. Use the Add button to bring up the entry screen. Because Officer Judd is logged on, all items will be assigned to him. We will retain the date for our first item. Evidence Manager will number our items sequentially, so we're working on item number 1. Officer Judd sees these items at 12:31, and the location he sees them from was the vehicle trunk. Our first item is a Motorola cell phone, so we enter the appropriate description. We can save our first item and move on to item number 2. This item was also seized from the vehicle trunk at the same time. The item is a car stereo, so again we enter the appropriate description. That's it for item number 2, so we'll save that record. Now we're working on item number 3, but we don't have a third item, so we can exit from our entry screen. Notice that our 2 items appear on the table of our Recovered Stolen Property case file. If a label printer is available, we could print our barcode labels now, or we can leave the labeling for the evidence room to take care of later. We have a suspect in our Recovered Stolen Property file, so we'll head over to the Persons tab to enter that information. The last thing Officer Judd is going to do is add our suspect's name to the case file. We use the Add button to bring up the entry screen. Our person is the suspect, so we pick that from the drop-down list. We will also use the drop-down list for this person's title. We enter the remainder of the data into the appropriate fields. We do not, as of yet, have a victim for this case file. We only have the suspect and, of course, the recovered items. Once all of the information is entered, we can save our new record. We don't have any other persons to add to this file, so we can close our entry screen. Our suspect is now added to our case file. Officer Judd is completed with Evidence Manager. A property report could be printed if necessary. The cell phone and car stereo have been placed into a temporary locker for the evidence room personnel to deal with when the office opens up for business on Monday morning. Before we close the network remote module of Evidence Manager, we're going to have a look at the Items tab. As previously mentioned, Officer Judd has delivered his two items, the cell phone and the car stereo, to one of the temporary lockers so the personnel from the evidence room can retrieve those items on Monday morning. When those items are retrieved by the evidence room personnel, they will register them, which means that they will take custody of those items. These two small icons indicate that these items have not yet been registered, so Officer Judd can still make changes to his information. But once the evidence room registers the items and takes custody of them, Officer Judd can no longer make any changes to the data. In short, the rule is you can edit your own items and only if those items have not yet been registered. When the items are registered, these icons will no longer be present. We're now going to skip ahead in time to Monday morning and see how the evidence room registers Officer Judd's information. We'll close the network remote module for now and start up the main Evidence Manager program in the evidence room. The first thing we'll do is open up the data tables in our main Evidence Manager program. Here at the Files tab, we are positioned on the most recently added case file, which is the new case file that Officer Judd has added. Note that there is a small icon visible which indicates that this case file has not yet been registered. There is also a message telling us that we have two unregistered items for this case file. We'll now have a look at the Registration tab. The information here on the Registration tab lists all of the items and case files that have not yet been registered. There are a number of case files that have unregistered items at this time. Here is Officer Judd's case file and his two new unregistered items, a cell phone and a car stereo. We have retrieved these two items from a temporary locker and we can now register them. We'll go to the Items tab for this new case file. The Items tab lists our two unregistered items. The small icons indicate that these two items require registration. We are positioned on item number 1, so we can double-click on that record or use the registration button to access the registration screen. This is the registration screen where we're going to start with item number 1, the cell phone. Officer Judd is assigned to this item and the dates are correct, so it is not necessary to change any of these fields. The description of the item is also correct, so all we have to do is give this item a category, an origin, and a new location. We'll use the drop-down list to select the category of telephone gear. We retrieved this item from the temporary locker number 3, so that will be our origin. The last thing we'll do is store this item in our evidence room in the location of aisle 3, shelf B. We're finished with item number 1, so we use the register button to complete the transaction. Now we're working on item number 2, which is the car stereo. We retrieved it from the same temporary locker number 3, and we're going to store it with the first item in the location of aisle 3, shelf B, so that information does not need to be altered. We will, however, change the category to motor vehicle items using the drop-down list. We're finished with this item, so once again we use the register button. The screen closes as there's nothing else remaining that needs to be registered. Our items are now registered. Note that the two icons are no longer present and our current location has been assigned. The evidence room now has custody of these two items. We can also print barcode labels if necessary. Next, we'll move over to the Files tab to complete the final step, which is to register the case file. Here on the Files tab, we are positioned on our case file that needs to be registered. The icon indicates that it has not yet been registered and a control number has not yet been assigned for this case file. We can double-click on the record or click on the Register button on the toolbar to access the registration screen. All of the information is correct on this screen. Evidence Manager will assign the control number of 143. To complete the transaction, we use the Register button. The screen closes and we are finished. The registration icon disappears and the control number is being assigned. We're now going to close the main Evidence Manager program here in the evidence room and visit the front reception desk of our department, where we're going to have one more look at the network remote module of Evidence Manager. Officer James Kramer is working at the reception desk today. He is currently logging on to the network remote module on the computer at the reception desk. The first thing we're going to do is have a look at the case file that was just registered over in the evidence room by the evidence personnel. We will use the button on the toolbar to open the data files. The case file we're looking for is number 01-000090 from this year, so we only have to enter the 90 portion of that number. The file is opened up and we're positioned at the Items tab. Here is Officer Judd's recovered stolen property file and his 2 items. The icons for these items are not present, so that indicates that both items have been registered. This means that Officer Judd no longer has custody of these items and he would not be able to edit any of the information. The evidence room, however, has custody of the items, so only they could edit or change any information with respect to this file. We're now going to navigate over to the Searching tab. We are positioned at the Searching tab because Officer Kramer has just received a phone call here at the reception desk about some stolen property. The person on the phone has advised Officer Kramer that she has had her cell phone and car stereo stolen sometime in the last few days and is wondering if it has turned up. Officer Kramer is going to conduct a search for those items. Here on the Searching tab, we have chosen to do an item description search. We only have to look at items that we may have received in the last few days. So Officer Kramer sets the date range of the search using the calendar to set the starting date. The starting date will be set to February the 8th, 2001, 6 days from today's date. The ending date is set to today. We will enter a value in the item description of cell phone, so our results should show any item from the last 6 days that include the words cell phone. Use the search button and our results are displayed instantly. We have found a cell phone, so let's jump to the case file. Here is all of our information. Officer Kramer can now advise the caller that we do have her property and she can contact Officer Judd and quote this year's file number of 90. We have completed our overview of the networking capabilities of Evidence Manager using